And he just looked at me and he just said, "Do you want a divorce?" And I just looked at him, I'm like, "Yes." "No." He said, "Okay then, we need to figure this out because what we're doing isn't working."
Welcome back to part 2 of 3, where today we're going to be discussing your energy. But before we do that, we want to recap a little bit about part 1 of 3, which was home team. Remember, you're not enemies. You're on the same side. Have these conversations with each other. Hopefully you did some of that in the last few days. But today, what are we really going to be hitting on?
We're really going to be hitting on approach, how you approach your spouse or your partner, and a lot of it. Yeah.
Sorry.
2 parts.
2 parts. I'll say which has 2 parts.
2 parts.
Sorry, I'll keep it quiet.
Energy and assumptions.
Energy and assumptions.
Assumptions. Yeah.
We will be graded on this later.
You guys have to remember too that you're going to be needing these tools as you guys grow together, because there are going to be different circumstances that come up, different situations, things that happen that activate this spiral, if you will, that you're necessarily not going to recognize because it's not going to look normal. It's not going to look like what you're used to.
Regular life changing going on, getting older, right?
Because you're in a different situation.
Your life is different.
Right. And we, later on down the road, we will go into more detail about those kind of things, maybe getting a little bit of more specific coaching.
Yep.
But just in 2017, when we moved to Florida, it was a very stressful time. We had a lot of things going on. We moved during a time of a major hurricane. We were displaced. It was very stressful. It brought out a lot of past just emotions, like rawness that we really didn't know that was there towards each other and others. So I
was just going to say, stress lowers resiliency. So the more pressure's on you, the harder it is to maintain your coolness.
Yeah, so it was months of at each other, and then we would talk and it'd be like, fine, whatever, for a week it would be okay, and then it would start again getting worse.
Silent treatments.
There was an explosion and it was just not healthy. It was not good. So finally Adam had approached me. It's like, come upstairs. It was either now or we scheduled a time. I don't even remember. I think the kids were at school. I don't know. But we went upstairs, had a seat on the couch, and he just looked at me and he just said, "Do you want a divorce?" And I just looked at him, I'm like, "No." He said, "Okay then, we need to figure this out because what we're doing isn't working. So put it out. Like I want all your cards on the table." And it was the same from him. There was no yelling, no bickering, no
animosity,
no snarky remarks, digs, nothing like that. It was total transparency. And we had a common goal. We just had a common goal.
So common goal.
Mm-hmm.
What was our common goal? How did we do that? How did we actually go about it?
Well, I think we made the commitment to each other to not be defensive and assume. Yeah. So to be open and honest with what we were feeling and when. So like we've said before, that it's the little things that build up to be the big thing, right? The cups on the counter.
Yeah.
Towels on the floor, all that kind of stuff.
That negative environment doesn't happen overnight. It happens over time because we allow all the little crap to build up into big crap without understanding productive measures to help us to avoid it and keep our fire burning.
So if I'm having a rough day or I've been gone the majority of the day and then I come home and there's stuff everywhere, it'd be nice just to say like, "Babe, I've been working all day. I'm already stressed. Whatever. I'd appreciate if this was already done or had the kids do it." Just being open in the moment, because you don't have the time to fester on it, so you're not going to allow the emotions to build. So it's not going to come out of a place of like resentment or even being emotional. You're just going to be honest and asking the question for help. You're going to be asking your teammate for help.
Regarding approach, right? Because foundation, home team, cool. Now I want to serve that relationship,
right?
Make it blossom. So I got to be committed to myself to be accountable to my energy, to how I'm feeling, how I'm thinking toward you, how I approach you even. I have to look at that and say, is this the best approach? It's just being responsible with your emotions at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
Committing to not assume, because we all know the funny little cliche about assuming. It almost always causes damage. And then, like you said, you commit to that. That checks my behavior more often than not.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important that you're on the same exact page. You're on the same exact vibration. Good vibes, chick over here. Energy's real, right? So that's why it also matters why we said on the last video, part 1, both of you are at 100%. You both have to be proactive. I read books on how to get better, and I listen to people down the road further than me, and I look for tips and I look for bad examples to avoid. She does the same thing. We share some of these same books or study guides, whatever we do, play games, these date night people, the right people to hang around with is very critical. But again, that's not for today's topic. Right now, it's important that you've taken a couple steps toward becoming that home team unit and that you're both proactively working toward that. But what happens when one of the two, or maybe both, are difficult to approach because of defensiveness and emotionalism? How do you handle that? How do we handle that? Because approach has to do with assumptions and it has to do with the energy that we're carrying. Mm-hmm. The assumptions we think produce the emotions we feel.
And if you had the conversation with your spouse from the first video that we suggested, there might be certain feelings and emotions that were brought up, right? That are coming out.
Could be.
That
discovery,
are there.
In the discovery process, yeah.
Right. So the approachability about certain things in everyday life might not be as easy, or they might be a little bit more tricky to navigate. So typically what we do is we just ask the question. Like, hey, I noticed that you're stressed out. Is it something that I did? Is it something that I said? Should I be taking it personally? Should I not be taking it personally?
Yeah. Hey, am I being sensitive? I always say that, something like that. I put it on me first. Hey, I don't know if I'm just being paranoid, but are you off today? Energy seems off. You seem down. Are you crabby? Is it something I didn't do? And I'll rapid fire a few things like that. And once she gets over the obnoxiousness of what I just hit her with, even though I'm fine because I hit her with 4, 5, 6 suggestions.
And sometimes it's better just to ask one question.
Right. Yeah. And I'm learning. We're all learning. It's a process.
So the more that you guys are open and honest with each other and explain things that are going on and what exactly you're thinking, the less there will be assumptions because there won't be a need. You guys will know that if there's an issue, it's going to be spoken and you're safe to know. There's going to come a point where you're going to be safe to know that when your spouse or your partner is upset, you're not going to take it personal because they didn't tell you that it was about you. That's going to be a great place to come to, and that'll save you guys a lot on arguments and frustration. There are people that like to give the silent treatment.
Good old silent treatments.
So it might be difficult to say
all-star level.
To say something initially at that time because we're like, oh, doing it again. Yep, I knew it. You just gotta put in those little reminders. Help the other person be more aware of what they're doing that bothers you. Because if they don't know, they can't change it or they can't work on it. But it goes both ways.
But silent treatments are born out of hurt.
Sure.
They're born out of hurt, 100%.
Well, and 2, because you probably think that if you say anything, it's not going to change anyway. So
right?
What does it matter?
Yep. So how do you break? Let's do a little bonus right now. How do you break a silent treatment? How do you end that?
You confront it.
Who confronts it?
The other person confronts it.
The other person calls them out?
Yeah.
Ooh.
I've done it with you.
Ooh.
Yeah. You told me you were going to be open and honest with me.
Yeah, but that's when my ego's wide open and raw, and then you're going to come in and just...
Yeah, you told me that you were going to tell me if there was an issue. So why are you not talking to me? It's not fair. That's not right.
Right.
It's not cool.
Well, and oftentimes it's the only way we know how to hurt the person's closest to us.
Right.
We use it as a weapon.
Yeah.
Right? It's not intentionally a weapon.
Right. But the other person most likely didn't do what they did to hurt you.
So I was assuming?
You were assuming.
See?
And then you got silent.
All comes together.
All comes together. After we had that conversation about not wanting to get divorced and being on the same page, you have to find those things that trigger you about your spouse. Like, oh, well, it really bothers me when you do this, or it bothers me when you do that. I feel like you don't help me with the kids because... Or, you know, if both of you work outside the house, well, I would love it if you could just take one night a week for dinner. You know, just take that one night off of me for stress. Something like pick laundry. If you don't cut the grass, like have one or two responsibilities that the husband does. And then, you know, girls, we pick up all the slack, the rest of the slack. But if you have that commitment, it shows that they're with you, that they're on your side, and that they want to make things easier for you. So I think establishing those expectations there, and then building from that, and not getting offended or upset when they're not met, just reminding like, hey, you know, remember we talked about this.
Yep. And that does wonders for the other person, in this scenario, me, because it makes me want to approach you
right
more calmly, more peacefully, more synergistically.
Right. And the more the spouse does that, the more you realize that they care.
Yep. And now you have a virtuous cycle that's starting to catch momentum and steam, right? You're starting to get ground with that.
Right.
That's why this can happen quickly. So, recapping part 2, approach,
Yes.
Watch your assumptions.
Right.
Watch your energy.
Right. Clear expectations.
Calmly, clearly approach. Gently, in love, call somebody out in their silent treatment if it's been a while. Use right timing, wise judgment, all that good stuff, right?
So why don't you go ahead and tell them what's next? What
Yeah.
should they expect in
So-
the next email?
So part 3, is that what you meant by next?
Yeah.
So part 3, we're going to discuss warnings and pitfalls, okay? Stuff you have to watch out for when you're on mission and you're on the trail, stuff that will derail you and sabotage you very fast.
Because as fast as you can build on communication, you can also go back to silent treatment and cycle.
Yep.
So you're going to be in a delicate place here for a little while.
And the longer you're in the beginning of that, the longer you're susceptible to those dangers.
Right.
And we're going to tell you the kind of stuff that you'll be able to avoid, what to watch out for, the silent killers, and then some other more obvious things too. But we're gonna discuss those things to give you guys the best chance of success. Because again, you can be freaking blessed no matter where you're at right now. And we want to know from you how you did from part 1 of 3, talking about home team. Leave some comments below if you would, or use this content right now. Leave comments below about this topic, and as well as any perspectives you might have that other people could gain wisdom and success from you. Or if you want to use it to ask a question, please do that. We will respond personally. No big deal. We love you.
So we'll see you soon in part 3.
Do we ever cuss at each other?
Yes.
Oh, I hate how inconsistent we can be. I don't cuss at her. I do not cuss at her. I've never called her a name.
Not at
So
me.
is your yes for you?
Not at me. Like, we've been heated and there's been cussing, but it's just been like a word. It's not, we don't like cuss at each other.
We don't call each other names.
No. Well,
Man,
you gotta
see
be
what I'm
specific.
saying?
You have to be specific
All
in
right,
your question.
I wasn't specific enough. Jeez. Anyway, moving on. We're moving on?
Yeah.
All right, let's help you guys have all the glory we got. Jeez. Today we're discussing this.
Today we're discussing assumptions and energy.
Hey, these kids are wigging me out. So why don't you go ahead and tell them
You moved way too much, I think, from the last cut.
I was like this.
You sure?
Yeah, possible.
Okay.
So why don't you go ahead and tell them what's next, what they should expect.
Go ahead and not look at the computer when you're getting ready to go back to the camera.
The stress gets to you, you know, even just telling your spouse when you see them for
We'll cut there.